Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars Rebels episode review. This one is going to be for Season 3, Episode 1 and 2, a double episode premiere, Steps into Shadows. Overall, I'll get into general thoughts before some specifics. I thought this was a solid opening, but nothing overly impressive. I think some of the premieres have been better than this. It presents a few ideas going forward for what the season is going to focus on in terms of character arcs, but I'm not fully invested just yet. The trailer that I did the analysis of a couple of months ago when the Season 3 trailer came out, I was interested in, but it didn't blow me away. I think part of that is that they immediately presented Season 2 as kind of the Vader Ahsoka season. Like the big stuff was going to involve those two. And I think going into this season knowing that basically all of that stuff is going to take a back seat for until whenever they're deciding to bring it back, it is a little bit frustrating to know that, oh, we're just suddenly, that character, really important character, Ahsoka, is gone. Vader probably won't be involved all that much this season, and we're just starting to present new stuff. Thankfully, the Season 2 finale did present some interesting ideas of, blinding Kanan, introducing that Sith holocron, which Ezra was talking to, and they continue, of course. It's just that I think these two episodes highlighted that the whole Ezra potentially going to the dark side plot it was never something I was massively invested in, just because I never really felt like he was the sort of character that was going to take that sort of an arc. I still think it's ultimately the direction that they're kind of planning on heading in to some degree, but the problem is that how do you make a, Jedi in training who is established to be pretty powerful compared to most people, and have him take this arc of going down the dark side, and have it not immediately just come across as like Anakin 2.0. Thankfully, I think they did enough in these two episodes to kind of take the direction, at least for now, away from that. The holocron, which you were really worried about Ezra when the way he was talking to it, and then in the scene with Kanan and Ezra when they were talking about it, the holocron's now gone. It's still like present there, and I assume they might do something with it going forward, but it's out of the picture for now, and I like that. I'm glad that the focus on Ezra is less on, oh, he's going to turn to the dark side immediately. That's obviously when the Darth Maul stuff is going to come back into play, and I think from the trailer we know a holocron of some, whether it be the one that we know about or what, comes back into play later with Maul and Kanan and stuff like that. So that's interesting. As for Ezra in this episode, I like his new design, much needed in my opinion. If they're taking the story in a more serious direction, you needed to get rid of that really kind of kid-focused design that he was in before. He didn't look like a warrior, a Jedi at all in the previous outfit. Now he does. It's reminiscent of his old one, but it's clearly more Jedi-focused. One thing I didn't like was that they just basically no explanation really. He just suddenly has a new lightsaber. It's green, no explanation given to why it's a different color or how he came to create it or anything like that. It's just, no, he's got a new lightsaber. It was expected, but I felt like, lightsaber crystals, hard to find. What's the situation here? How did you get this? That needs an explanation. And I think it really needs an explanation mainly because his previous lightsaber was a combination kind of blaster lightsaber. This one is just a lightsaber. It may have a trick or two down the line that they haven't revealed yet, but I think you need to explain why he decided to make this lightsaber more normal going forward. And the color change, of course. Just little things like that annoy me when it comes to lightsabers, where you oftentimes focus so heavily on like how he got his first crystal and how he came to create that lightsaber. And then this one is just like, yeah, he's got a new one, and it's the same with like Ahsoka. The color of her blades last season not being addressed. Little frustrations like that, I think, are kind of not great to have in the series. As for what they did with his character here, I actually quite liked it. I like that they didn't go overly like he's turning to the dark side, but they get across that he's extremely capable now. He's at the point now where he is being given missions to lead because he is so powerful. And moments like when he's just running down a corridor and he's invincible basically against these stormtroopers. He can just easily deflect anything, take them out at will. He's very strong with the Force, able to like slow Chopper's fall and keep him safe. You've really established that he is very capable now. The only problem is that his the influence of the Jedi, the Sith holocron and what it's saying to him, it's telling him to focus more on his power, to fuel things by his anger, and basically not care as much about people. And it's leading him to be, you know, overly aggressive when it comes to planning missions, not thinking things out clearly enough. And you see that throughout here, that he's clearly a character who is destined for a pretty strong leadership position, but he's struggling with the initial kind of steps to becoming a leader, and that he's been given these responsibilities, but he doesn't like being undermined by people, even though he's only given a minor leadership position, and he's kind of like, no, I'm the leader, my plan has to be the case, and he's maybe not taking everyone else's opinion into account when it's coming to planning the missions. And you can see the position he gets himself into a couple of times, and you know, they use pretty big consequences here, in the sense of like Ezra is left on his own at the end of the mission to get the Y-Wings, and he has to basically rely on Kanan coming back and saving him again. After being so confident, it was so interesting to have that moment where he's just, I wouldn't say quite on the verge of tears, but he's just temporarily helpless. Like, he can't get out of this situation, he doesn't know what to do, and he's just like, I need my master to save me here. That he hasn't fully developed yet to becoming, you know, a Jedi Knight, such. That was, I think, a pretty important scene to have. Just that, no, there's still some humility there. He realizes that he's not just perfect now, and I think what the way they've gone is that his punishment, Hera taking away his command, he's going to be taken out of a leadership position for now, and I assume later on we'll come back to that, and that's fairly okay. You know, they emphasize the dark side nature of what he's doing a little bit, with regards to like the powers that he's using with the Force are like beyond anything that, as far as they're aware, Kanan has taught him, and then they're just a little bit worried about how many people he's kind of killing with these things. Like, I suppose what they were potentially thinking with the walker scene was that you didn't have to walk the walker off the edge. You could have done something where you like mind controlled the guy to knock himself out, get out of the walker, we take control of the walker, and we have control of this situation here with this big piece of machinery. But instead he focused more on just killing everyone, destroying everyone, that sort of thing. And then when the Ugnaught guy gets killed, it was kind of a moment where like they blame it on him, but he realizes it wasn't really his fault. Like, yes, maybe he should have done something to keep the group together, but you can't really blame him when the guy just ran off and got himself blown up, basically. So that was a kind of weird position where you understand why people would say this to him, like, this is your first leadership mission and someone got killed, but at the same time, in the situation, you can't really blame Ezra for what happened to the guy. As for, you know, the direction they took, the main decision, he was meant to go on like a scout mission to find out what was happening with the Y-Wings at this kind of destruction plant, but he decided, no, they're being destroyed, we've got to go now, and he basically activated this attack before they were really ready, and they got way in over their heads. You know, if there's a weakness of the episode, it probably was that, in that it's just another one of these missions where we're building stuff for the rebellion, but it's such a small aspect, and they're really not going into depth about what the overall rebellion is. I appreciated that the introduction of Thrawn into the series now, and then the scene at the end with Hera, where they kind of confirm, we're not going to directly use these Y-Wing bombers. These are actually going to another general as part of another rebel faction. And I like that Thrawn being introduced now is kind of aware of that. All the focus is on the Lothal rebels, our group. but he realizes that there's more to it than that. That they're building up this kind of infrastructure because there's a wider organization at play here, and he wants to destroy that before it gets too big, that it's a threat to the Empire. I think that is a good story direction to take things, because the first two seasons were really bad with regards to where the rebellion is actually going. It's just like, okay, Ezra's joined this small group now. There's Bail Organa, Leia, and some people, but no one really of note that like really suggests that the rebellion is anything huge. I like that we're kind of going in that direction now, and something big is kind of bound to happen as we go forward. So I do appreciate that. Thrawn himself, wasn't a focus really of this episode. He was introduced, made to seem important. He's a very intelligent person, being able to figure this out. He's confident to just be like, okay, let them take those Y-wings and think that they've got a victory. We realize that this is a bigger thing, because I suppose his perspective was that if these Y-wings later attack us, and it's not related to Lothal, it confirms our theory that there's more rebels out there and more of a situation to do. So I like that he's kind of taking more of a thinking approach to this, rather than the standard kind of Empire guy we have, and he's just like, wait, no, we were meant to oppose every single thing that they do, when in reality they nearly got themselves killed for like 5 Y-wings, which they set up at this point in time are very old ships at this point in time. So that, I thought that was interesting. I'm interested to kind of get into a big kind of ship space battle where Thrawn's involved and really see his tactics come into play. Like, his first action against the rebels, I think, is going to be a really big moment within the series. But I suppose one of the final things I want to talk about is the Kanan section of the episode. I thought that was probably the most interesting, kind of, that they gave him the big character arc here. That he, basically, since the time skip, they haven't really said how much time has passed, but since the time skip, Kanan has been quite distant from everyone else. He's kind of been meditating, learning to accept what's happened to him, not having his sight anymore, and kind of attuning himself more with the Force. And he's hearing these voices calling out to him, like telling him to come to them. And the big impression you get is that his relationship with Ezra hasn't been great, because Ezra's more focusing on the holocron and not on him. And there's clearly been some debates about the holocron, that Kanan doesn't want him to use it, but Ezra does, and he thinks it's important. Eventually, like, Kanan takes it and goes to meet with this voice that's calling him, and we get the introduction of I think it's Bendu, is what they call himself. I don't know if that's the species name, or what he's just saying, like, he said, like, Ashla, he said something else with regards to the Sith, just, like, where you harness the Force from. The Jedi use Ashla, which is, like, the good Force, the Sith use the kind of bad Force, and I think the implication is that this creature uses the kind of middle point, the grey Force, rather than the kind of black and white. I thought it was interesting what they went for here. Ultimately, it was a little bit simpler of an explanation than I perhaps expected. Just this idea of Kanan constantly being afraid of the spiders because he can't see them and he's constantly wary of them. Whereas he just had to accept that, the fear wasn't what was happening to anyone else or the spiders. He was the one who was afraid because of what happened to him. And it was just this extra layer of acceptance about what happened to him, and accepting that he can use the Force to kind of gain more sight than a lot of people have. He can see where the spiders are, like, physically, but he can also see how they feel as well. That they are kind of just as afraid as he is, and that he can actually walk peacefully around with them there. Their whole goal is not just to hurt him. And then I suppose that giving him the confidence to kind of get back into action, be part of a mission, and really kind of do something, get involved, and kind of, I suppose, potentially train Ezra again, be more involved with Ezra. The fact that he got straight onto the Ghost with Hera, and she's like, "You're back." It was a pretty big thing. They also kind of destroyed one of the kind of transmitter things, which was keeping the spiders away from the camp. I think the only issue I have is that ultimately the impact that it had on Kanan is more that, oh, he has confidence to get back into action again, rather than anything massively meaningful regards to the Force, Ezra, what exactly direction they're taking things in. I assume this character will come back because Kanan leaves the Sith holocron with this Bendu, and the Bendu seems interested in it, but they don't seem to obviously set up that there's something evil going on here. Um, so I assume maybe Ezra will meet this Bendu thing, maybe Maul will meet the Bendu, and the holocron will come back into play, and something will happen with regards to that. I don't really know what direction they're taking things in, but it's interesting enough. I just felt like more could have been done. That it was a sequence of the episode that was meant to that felt more kind of epic spiritual than it actually was. That just by talking and saying words like Ashla and stuff like that, you get the fans invested, whereas you didn't actually say all that much, you just kind of said them for the sake of saying them in a basic plot about Kanan not being afraid anymore, rather than saying something truly meaningful about the Force itself. The last thing I want to say is Hondo is in this episode, and I continue to enjoy him, but I feel he's become a little bit one note. That all he is the guy who says a joke, he's somehow has all these connections, and then he does this kind of friendly betrayal at the last minute where he just kind of leaves before helping anyone out properly. And it's just going to continue like that. I kind of want them to do something bigger with Hondo going forward, rather than what they have done up to now. It's just this weird friendship that he and Ezra seem to have, where it's just the same thing every single time we have Hondo in an episode. So I just want them to use him in kind of more unique ways going forward. But I think that's about all I wanted to say. So final thoughts on this two-part opening. Good, but not great. I think that's what I said at the start. It didn't quite reach the point of like, oh, season 3 is going to be amazing just because of this. They didn't set up quite enough. As I said, I'm interested in Thrawn. He seems like a really interesting villain immediately upon setting him up, that he is going to challenge the rebels tactically so much going forward. And they're going to have so much trouble because of that. You know, Ezra with the dark side, where he is right now with regards to his leadership, that's going to be interesting. The Phantom obviously being destroyed. Do they replace it with a new kind of smaller ship, or did they just immediately repair it and call it like make a new one and call it just the Phantom 2, nothing different about it? Or are they just without that the Ghost is the overall main ship that we have, or what? Does Ezra get his own ship? Kanan get his own ship? That's the sort of thing that's going to be interesting there. Kanan, I think, continues to be interesting, but I don't think they set up a massively clear arc about where they're going with him. The Bendu, I do want to see more of, but again, they were a little bit vague about what exactly they're doing. I just want the show to have an overall more focused plot as the season goes on. I'm just a little worried that we get into like episode like 5, 6, 7 and we're off doing random stuff again like we were in season 1 and 2. We're in season 3 now, time skip, things seem more serious. I think we've got to keep it that way going forward. So yeah, I'm going to end the video there and just finish by saying if you want to follow me on social media, links to my Twitter and my Tumblr are in the description. Then if you want to support my channel so I can make more videos, better videos, links to my Patreon page and also my PayPal donation link are also in the description. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching and bye.